I want you to imagine for a moment that you're standing on a shoreline, beautiful, pristine white sand, your feet are buried in it, and the ocean's gently lapping at your feet. It's a nice day, you're looking out, and you're thinking to yourself, man, I wish the waves were bigger. And you're really trying to make the waves bigger and bigger and bigger, and you're like, no, nothing's happening. Why? Well, that's how most people believe the law of attraction works, that they get a control over the laws that govern nature. It's just not how it works. You and I are constantly in a state of attraction. This is not some weird esoterical hippie type of concept. It's just how it is. We literally magnetize ourselves to people that are in harmony with us, or we reject and repel the people that aren't. A way to think about this is the way your mind or thoughts operate. It's like a frequency of a radio station. So imagine for a moment when you're listening to your radio, it's set to 94.7 as an example, and every other car that's tuned into that radio station is going to hear the same song. That's pretty much how your thinking works. Now, there are millions of degrees of frequency. There's not just like a handful. There's millions of degrees. There's almost an infinite number. But your thoughts will go out on a certain wavelength, and people, situations, and circumstances in life will reflect back to you the frequency of that thought. That's why it's so vital that you understand the idea of changing the frequency of your thoughts. The more empowering a thought, the higher the frequency and the bigger the amplitude of vibration, which means you start to attract to yourself better situations and circumstances. The lower the frequency of thought, the more negative, the more depressing, the more down, the more corrosive you attract. Think about it for a moment. Why do certain people rub you the wrong way? It's because their conditioning, their paradigm is on a different radio station to yours. But you're around certain people and you're comfortable with them. Why? Because you're on the same radio station. Now, this isn't just about one type of thought. This can happen with many different, this is very complex, but essentially the easiest way to think of yourself is a magnet. A magnet for good, or repelling the bad, or you just attract the bad and you repel the good. Some people I call a shit magnet, right? Like their life is wired that way. But what they don't get is they are the cause of that. Because most people believe that when you're talking about, say, the law of attraction, that they get a call on whether they attract or not. Like, how do I invoke it? That's like standing at the ocean, yelling at the waves to get bigger. You don't control the tide. You don't control the waves. You don't control when the sun's going down or when it's coming up. Well, conversely, the sun doesn't go up and down. The earth rotates. But the point being is we don't control any of that. We control our decisions. The decisions that we create based upon the imagined ideas we have are going to elevate the frequency of our thinking, or it's going to bring it down. We want to engage in brighter ideas, bigger ideas, more joyful ideas, because as we do that, you'll notice you are more inspired, which what does that mean? It means our spirit inside, it is brightened and brought out. We feel better when we're more engaged to ideas that are empowering than disempowering ideas, right? Now, your life at the moment, probably one of the reasons you might have hired me as a coach or wanted to work with me is because you might have been stuck with the same ideas and you find that there's no more joy in your life. Well, remember, whatever's going on in your life at the moment, you are constantly in attraction mode all the time, constantly. But here's what happens when you start to consciously think about a new idea. It's called the reticular activating system, RAS. It's part of the brain where as soon as you are looking for something, you start to see it everywhere. For example, if you ever bought a car, maybe it was a white car, and all of a sudden you now see that white car everywhere on the road. Did they suddenly make more? No. You just tuned into that frequency and start seeing it everywhere. Maybe when I was in real estate, I used to see for sale signs everywhere. Now I'm lucky if I see any because my brain and my frequency of thinking was on that radio station, right? So it's important you understand this concept because what you're engaging in terms of thoughts, you are going to attract into your life. Another way to think about it is the ideas that you create are like spiritual seeds. So a mind seed is what you could call it. And you get to plant that in the treasury of your subconscious mind, like a garden. Now you can plant any seed you want in that ground and it will germinate. Like the unconscious mind will just germinate whatever seed you lay down in there. So if you're planting weeds, they'll grow just as easily as beautiful acorn trees. Now let's take an acorn And imagine that acorn sitting on a desk. In the wrong environment, it'll just wither and die. But it has a patterned plan in that. Now the question you ask is, well, is the tree in the acorn or is the acorn in the universe? Well, we know there's no tree in the acorn, but there's a pattern plan for growth. Just like you have a pattern plan for growth in your body, in your mind. You plant that in the right ground, what will happen? It will start attracting what it needs to grow. The tree is not in the acorn. The tree is in the universe. And it starts to attract what it needs through the soil, and it pulls it out of the universe. That's exactly how it works. It happens with all things in the plant and animal kingdom. Now, this is what happens with the decisions you make and with the ideas that you consciously entertain. They're like spiritual seeds, and you start attracting what you need precisely when you need it for your unfoldment. It's a beautiful way to start seeing how life works. You don't control the speed at which things come to an extent. That's a different type of law, which we'll get into in a later session. But another way to consider the way you're going to operate going forward is this congruency inside. So you've got an idea, and then you've got a way you feel in your unconscious mind or your subconscious. Now, the people in life that are the most conflicted have something called praxis, which is when you're out of alignment. Praxis is the integration of belief and action. So you might have met someone before, and you know they're incongruent because their actions reflect what they don't believe. So you can get people, say, maybe at a church, where they're heavily invested in reading the Bible, but they start talking to you about the Bible, but you know they don't believe what they're saying. That's praxis, right? Their integration of belief and action is out of alignment. We need to get to a point where what we think, what we feel, and what we believe, and how we act are all in congruency and all aligned. When we do that, we become more authentic. When we do that, we start telling the truth to ourselves more often, and we start listening to our inner voice better. Now, how does this all play out, and what does this matter? Well, it matters because you don't attract what you consciously think about. It's not that simple. You attract what you believe and who you are. I've had clients come to me after a year of solid coaching with other people, and it's not to downplay their coaching, but they didn't understand this. And what they'd do is they'd come back to me and they'd quote verbatim books like Think and Grow Rich. All memory, all conscious learning. But their beliefs, they didn't believe it. They didn't believe that they could write their goal out and they could make that happen. They didn't believe what they had been learning. And because of that fact, they didn't attract any new opportunity. Their life didn't actually change. Whereas there are other people who have never read those books, who are what you would call unconscious competence, and they would just be attracting like magic, opportunity after opportunity, and you're like, man, they must just be lucky. Well, not really. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Some people are just never cognizant of how this works, but yet they're just in harmony with it. Well, you and I need to be conscious of it, and we need to be in harmony with it. So what does this mean? The ideas that you take from your mind, the ones you start to plant, you need to attach belief to them. You need to attach positive emotion. You need to start seeing them as real, because when you do that, you change the vibrating frequency of your body and your mind, and your thoughts start to shift. When that happens, you start to attract and see the world differently. And those little acorns you're planting start to germinate. Now, if you don't believe me, then wait until you make a proper decision on what you want. It's like magic. Everything opens up. I know when I set a real goal of moving overseas to follow my dream of becoming a professional ballroom dancer, I needed serious money to do that. And I'd been playing the real estate agent up to this point. And I went, man, I got to move. And I know the decision, as soon as I made the decision, this wasn't the decision that was ambivalent or interested. I'd be making interested decisions up to this point. It's like, well, I feel good this weekend, so I'm going to go out and sell some real estate. No, this was like, I have to sell or I'm going to starve and never get my dream. And boom, I made the decision. I got on the phone, started calling people. Money was like coming out of heaven. And I was like, where was this years ago? And I realized, man, that's what a real decision means. That's what a real decision does. I started attracting, it was so much easier for my business to grow because I'd already achieved the outcome in my mind when I made that decision. It wasn't a decision if I can do it. It's already done. I saw it finished. And what happened? The universe responded by bringing me what I needed. So your exercise, I want you to start thinking about what you want, but then I want you to start to integrate it into your beliefs. I want you to start playing around with that and listen to this audio again. think about this again and love understanding and watching the law of attraction in action in your life. This is Vaughn. Thank you very much.